parts. And so we're talking about a portfolio model. So we can say then that money management is not only a framework for looking at things, but it's also a portfolio model that implements these things. I hope that this morning, although things start out simple, this framework starts to gel and build in your mind. And by this afternoon, we'll take the software and we'll implement the portfolio model built on these methods. My goal today is to ignite the interest in you in this framework and in this model and give you the tools so that you can begin implementing it tomorrow morning. In fairness to you, we're going to cover the math behind this as well, but that is solely for the sake of thoroughness. Don't worry if the math happens to elude you today. The printouts contain the math and you can always go back to it later. More importantly, since it's 2008, we have software that can implement these types of things without having to understand them to that level. In building this framework, we're talking about a process. Some processes are very friendly. A mathematical function is such a process. To find a given y value for a given x value by a function is a nice, easy process we can work with. Some processes are not mathematical. Boy meets girl. Someone seeks revenge. Fathers grow old and die. Right now, in a soulless night in Las Vegas, a roulette wheel spins, spinning out random numbers. This too is a process where we can map a value to what occurred at a given time, an x to a y. And what we're going to try to do is convert that last type of process to the first type of process. And from there we will build our framework. Gambling examples are similar to trading examples. A 500,000 yen account might trade a particular stock for 100 shares. A 100 million yen account will trade in more than that 100 shares. As someone's account equity fluctuates between greater and lesser values, so too will the quantity they trade in. I hope you've seen so far in the graphs with the standard deviations bending down why we need systems that have a positive mathematical expectation to have any chance at maximizing compound growth. For a positive mathematical expectation game, we maximize the expected growth on the first play, if we're only to play one play, by betting 100% of our stake. Let's take our coin toss example. Let's change the numbers a little so that it's more representative of trading. And let's say if it comes up heads now, you win 20,000 yen. And if it comes up tails, you lose 10,000 yen. And what we have then is if I run through the computer all values I can come up with for f between 0 and 1, I find that my TWR is maximized at 0.25. At 0.25f, I can convert my trades into HPR1 and HPR2. Where I win 20,000 yen, I have an HPR of 1.5. Where I lose 10,000 yen, I have an HPR of 0.75. Multiplying those two HPRs together now gives me my TWR of 1.125, which is the amount I can multiply my starting stake by and say, after 2 plays, here's what I've made on my starting stake. The vertical axis is reward. The horizontal axis is considered as risk. Under the current models, someone wants to be at the edge of this curve because, say, a composition, a mix that gives me portfolio C, B is superior to it because it has better return for the same risk. Similarly, A is superior to C because A has less risk for the same return. There's 2 problems readily apparent from what's currently being practiced. The first of these, the risk axis, is the variance in returns, the variance in your HPRs. The S, in effect, in what we saw in the Pythagorean theorem. That's not risk to me, and probably not to you, unless someone is a fund manager benchmarked to something like the Sharpe ratio. Risk is not variance in returns.
資産を最大限に増やす。ラルフ・ビンスのマネーマネジメントセミナー。 中長期トレンドフォローシステムの公開、スペースレバレッジモデル、資金管理モデルの公開、オリジナルソフト提供、オプティマル f で定期性リスク率を一般に公表したラルフが次に開発した資金管理モデル。セミナー参加者だけに公表される数学やプログラムの知識がなくても活用できる資金管理プログラムを公開。本セミナーでは初心者ではなく中級からベテランのマネーマネージャーを対象とし、資金管理とポートフォリオの構築について深く理解をしていただくことを目的としています。セミナーは大きく分けて2部構成となり、第1部では数学の使用を極力避け、概念について説明。第2部では概念の数学的構造と適用について深く言及している。一例を申し上げると、統計的依存性を測定する方法、オプティマル f、シナリオの立案、モダンポートフォリオ理論、ニューレバレッジスペースモデルについての徹底的な説明、ドローダウンと破滅リスク、なぜこれらをポートフォリオの構築に用いることが非常にまずい考えであるかなど、マネーマネジメントの権威自らその概念と具体的な使用方法、環境について言及した類を見ないセミナーである。